Okay, what I wanted to do here is take one of these texturing pieces that one of the students has been working on and kind of talk about it. So we're just going to go with this gauntlet that's right here. So let's just go ahead and hide the rest, and then we can kind of zoom in on this. And so what we see is that they've done a real nice job. They've got a leather on the leather part, some metal in here. Looks like they got two pieces of metal, like one metal on the metal parts on this gauntlet and then the rivets separate. It all looks pretty good, but there are some issues with this. Okay, can you see that there's a problem on that edge with the mapping coordinate? And the bump's pretty, extensive. I think it's way too much, and the scale of the pattern is kind of pretty large also. So let's just look at this. Now, the first thing I noticed about this piece is the student has embedded a subdivision in this. And I get this quite often when people are going in out of softwares. They've imported or exported this out of Maya or ZBrush. I'm not quite sure, but they subdivided and they exported it as a subdivision, and we don't want to do that. So I would want to replace this piece because they baked the subdivision in. Now, to do that, we would go into Max. What I would do is, here's the original gauntlet. Okay. And so I can go over here and I can just send that over there. Okay. So I'm just going to pick it. We'll go send to here. We're going to send it to Maya, and we'll update the current scene, and that'll just send this over and update this. Okay, now what we're going to see here is when we bring this in, we've got a couple of issues. Let's kind of get it over close to the other one. And we got a couple of issues in here. Okay, first of all, it's out of scale. Okay, that's a problem. And the other thing is, you'll see that when we brought this in, it took the quads and it made them into triangles. Okay, and that's a problem. So those are a couple of things that we need to fix before we bring it in. There's some things we need to do to it over in Max before we bring it into Maya, so that we don't have those issues. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. Okay, so we'll go back over to Max. All right, so first thing on scale, okay, one of the reasons we're having a little bit of problem on scale is if we go in here into Maya, we go to Windows, Setting and Preferences, and go to our Preferences. When you click on Settings right here, you'll see that the measurement in here, the scale is in centimeters, okay? If we go back over to Max and we go to Customize Unit Setup, and we go into System Unit Setup here, we'll see that the scale is in inches. So that's why there's a disconnect, and it's changing sizes as we bring it in. So what we want to do is in Max, we'll want to change this to centimeters, and that way the measurement scale in here is the same as the scale over there, and so things will be the same size. Okay. Now, on the part about it, these quads changing the triangles, what you have to do is you have to put a modifier on the modifier stack. And the one we want to put on here is one called Turn to Poly. Okay, Turn to Poly. If we put a Turn to Poly on this, now don't embed it in, just, leave it on the stack. Then we send it over there, it'll be quads. So now we'll send this again. So we're going to send to Maya, update the scene. Okay. And now what we'll have is a file that the scale's the same between them, and it's quads now. Okay. So just so we can keep these apart, I'm going to pick on this one. Students are really bad about naming their stuff. We can call this, this one's called Poly Surface 13. I don't know how you guys can figure out what's what because you don't name your stuff. So we're just going to call this Maya Gauntlet. Let us know that's the one inside of Maya. Now you'll notice I didn't put an underscore in here, but Maya has to have underscores. It doesn't like names with spaces. Since I hit enter, it's going to put it in there for me. So in some places Maya will fix this, other places it won't, but Maya doesn't like spaces and things. Okay. So let's go ahead and name this one over here. We just brought this one in. And by the way, you'll be on this tab. You have to go to this all the way up to this tab, and this is where you should name it. Okay, and we'll just call this one Max Gauntlet. Okay, so we got a Maya Gauntlet and we got a Max Gauntlet. Okay, what we want to do now is to we want to align these to each other. To do that, we have to select both of them, okay? And we have to select them in a specific order. We want to select the one we want to move first, then holding down the Shift key, we pick the one we want to move it to. So it's going to always move to the one that's green, okay? So when I have both of those selected, then I can go to Modify, Align Tool, and then I'm going to click this button right here. And let's see, and then we want to click this one, and that'll align those together. Actually, I don't want this one. I just need this one. No, I do need that one. There we go. That's about as close as I can get it, and then I'll have to move it to its final point, but that's pretty close. Okay, and so then I can move it into place. The other thing I want to do is to give its pivot point in its center, so the pivot point being down here. So if you go up to Modify, Modify Center Pivot right there. That'll move the pivot over. And now we can, just pick that one, and then we'll get it into place. Okay, and it'll be a little bit bigger because we haven't subdivided. Okay, and so that's how we get it in place. Now I'm going to move it off of it right now just so we can see both of them at the same time as we deal with what we're going to be doing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit F3. That'll smooth this one, and so there we have our two pieces. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is talk about fixing the texture on this. Okay. So now we've got one in here that's clean. It's not been, the subdivision's not baked into it, but I can take this material and put it onto this one. Now, one of the things I talked about in my video on creating tileable textures. So if you haven't watched that, you want to watch the video on creating tileable textures. One of the problems with this texture that's on this, with the bitmap that this student is using, it's not a tileable texture. Okay. So here's the texture that they put on it. First of all, it's a rectangle, okay? Some softwares can texture with rectangles, okay? Max does. Max got a thing called Bitmap Fit that'll automatically make the coordinates snap to the bitmap, and so it doesn't mind rectangles, but Maya doesn't like rectangles, okay? It wants everything to be squares, okay? So if we actually go in here and we go to our UV editor, and let's just zoom in here, and we're going to need to change our texture to that one. Okay. What we have going on here is you can see that there's that dark spot. So what it's actually doing is it's distorting the bitmap. Okay. Maya distorts the bitmap because it wants it to fit into a square. So basically what it's doing is like this. I'm going to duplicate this, Control T, and I'm just going to grab this and pull it over till it's about a square. And that's what Maya is doing. It's squashing this whole image so that it fits inside of the square. And so that's a problem because now, our texture that we created is distorted in here. So when you're in Maya, you really want your texture maps to be square. Okay. Now, the other thing is the mapping coordinate on here. We're getting this little kind of abrasion on here because this mapping coordinate is messed up. Okay. Now, I've got a little script that I run in Mel, and I'm going to run it in here really quick. And what it does is it turns off that green wireframe. Okay. So that when I select this, I can have it selected and I don't see the green wireframe that's in there. Okay. That's an advantage for me because I want to, as I go in here to manipulate this, then I can see it at the texture without the wireframe on it. And I'll post this script up so you guys know what that script is so that you can use it. Excuse me. Okay. So now we want to fix this mapping coordinate. So what we really want to do is we want to go to UV and we want to do automatic unwrapping, and then it's going to give me something like this. Okay. Now, this is, what we normally in industry call a garbage unwrap, because we really want this stuff to be stitched together better than this. But for what we're doing right now, this is okay. And so now you'll see I've fixed that abrasion that's in there. It's not in there anymore. Okay. But the scale is still out of scale. Okay. I mean, here's the thing to think about. This original swatch, if I was to put and actually measure how big this piece is, I would say that maybe this is about 4 inches from there to there. Okay. So we can't take this and stretch it over the whole thing, which is what's going on here. So we're taking a 4-inch, square of our material, our leather, and stretching it all over the whole thing. What this does, it makes our object look small. Okay. When we do that. Okay. So we don't really want to do that. So what we're going to do here is, because we're going to put a tileable texture in here. Now, we haven't updated it yet because I want to prove a point, but what we do is we scale this. Okay. So we come in here and we're going to say shell. Okay. And then we're just going to go ahead and pick all of this, and now we can scale it. Let me move this over so that we can kind of see this. Okay. So I'm going to scale these up. Okay, to get this pattern the size that I want in here. Okay, now you're seeing all these weird abrasions and stuff in here, and that's because this is not a tileable texture. This person that put this texture in here, it's not a tileable texture, so it doesn't work in this instance. Okay, now I created a tileable texture for this, and I'm just going to replace it. Okay, now if you saw my video, you saw me create it, but if you didn't, here's the tileable texture. So I used this initial texture that the student had, and through a series of processes, watch the other video, I've created a tileable texture with this now. Okay. So we'll go in here and we'll just replace that. Okay. So we'll pick this object, get our material. Got several materials on here. Metal. Let's see what we got here. It is metal, leather. Okay, so there it is. So here's our leather. And there's the JPEG. And I'm going to switch that out for the one that I fixed. And it's also on the bump here, so I'll need to switch that one out as well. Okay, and so now we don't have that abrasion in there. Okay, and now our scale is looking much better. Okay, still got way too much bump on this. I'm going to come in here and turn this bump down. They went insane on the bump. They didn't put some bump on it. They put a bump on it. Yeah. Okay. By default, when you put a bump, it's at, 100%. One is 100%. We're going to make it maybe 0.2, and that'll bring it down to something that's more natural looking. Okay. All right. So that looks pretty good now. So now, because we've used a tileable texture and we scaled it and we fixed the mapping coordinate, then you've got a nice surface there. Okay. So the same thing would be on this piece here. So if we go ahead and apply our same material onto it, okay, and now you'll see it, it doesn't look right because we don't have a mapping coordinate on it. You can see here, it's got like a nothing mapping coordinate. So we should do the same thing here. We go in, automatic unwrap it, okay, and now you can see it's got the mapping coordinate on there, okay, and it's out of scale, same thing. So we're going to go to shell, pick all of these. Let's kind of move this over where we can kind of see it. And then we'll scale. And we need to scale this stuff way up. Okay, I still think it needs to go up a little bit further. And I think I might rotate it just a little bit. Oops. Maybe something about like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's turn it back to object mode. And so there, I've got those both done. Okay. So the trick in this is doing an automatic unwrap. It's not a great unwrap. If I was really working on this, I would probably come in here and do some stitching to get it the way I want. But because this is going to have these metal pieces over the top of it and stuff, I see a little bit of seam there, but I don't think you'll see it once you put your metal pieces back on. And so you have to be careful. I'm going to put my script back in here to turn our wireframe back on. But you got to be careful not to embed your geometry like this. I see a lot of people doing this. Okay, they are importing and exporting their stuff out of Mudbox, and when they're doing that, they're embedding the geometry in. I don't have the lump character, but everybody that was bringing that lump character in, or not everybody, but a lot of people, they're bringing that lump character, they subdivide it in Mudbox or ZBrush and paint the skin, and then they don't turn the subdivision off when they export it to bring it back into Max or Maya, and you embed that subdivision in, which would be horrible for an animator to animate with. So you just want to be sure that when you're in one of those programs, you turn your subdivision down before you export it and bring it back into other softwares. Okay, so maybe that would help some of you guys on dealing with texturing your model. Okay, thank you very much.